kinds of major projects is that we have had a stable, hardworking membership. And I want to acknowledge here by name my fellow commission members, which you perhaps all know, Vice Chair Haley Jackson, Secretary Judy Vanderlinden, Adrian Coffeen, Lois Humple, Steve Kelsey, and Diane Scholl. I want to end by noting two major current emphases of historic preservation. The first is economic vitality. As every preservationist recognizes, the building most likely to be well preserved is one with a successful, committed owner. Many studies have demonstrated that historic preservation is an economic engine. It raises property values, it grows neighborhoods, it draws both locals and tourists, it stimulates business. The DHPC will continue to work with the web of people and organizations who are committed to making Decorah economically strong. A second cornerstone of contemporary historic preservation is environmental sustainability. Here's a famous, simple statement of this principle. The greenest building is the one already built. An extensive recent study of building reuse concluded in almost every imaginable scenario, it is more sustainable to preserve a building than to demolish it, even when the replacement building is LEED certified. We'd like to see even greater emphasis in Decorah's draft sustainability plan on building preservation, on downtown and residential density, and on walkability. And we will continue to work with others to articulate this intimate link between historic preservation and sustainability. So thank you for your support. I'd be happy to respond to questions or comments.
I appreciate the hard work this commission does. I also am aware of the expertise that the whole commission has. We're very fortunate to have that. And when we go to number 5, I won't have you repeat your report again.
Thank you.
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
Emily.
Yeah, you had said something about you're waiting for street commission permission for signage?
Well, the proposal was, so we're talking about the street signs that have the names of the streets in green.
Right.
And the proposal was to add a little bump sign on top of the downtown signs in a different color that would say Decorah Historic Preservation Commission. The street committee heard our proposal in 2018, but they said that they would like to wait until the end of the visioning process and maybe the chamber's branding work.
Okay.
And so we're hoping now that those two processes are done, that this will get back on the agenda. It was meant to be a small initial gambit to get these small pieces on those signs before we talked about the larger issue of the entrances to Decorah and what sort of signage there could be there about what the range of historic resources there are. But so we've got the money for the signs, so we're just waiting for it to go through.
Okay, noted. Thank you. Thanks.
Just Chad, where would that be going back for consideration?
Street committee,
Okay.
I think.
Okay. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and I appreciate the couple of comments because most years there aren't any.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, the consent agenda. I would like to move the Nordic Fest committee event out separately from the consent agenda. I'm fully aware that there are people that have comments. My desire to do this is perhaps not to address their comments, but I know that when we talked initially and they came, there were a lot of questions on how things were going to work out. I do know that Chris is here. There's members both of the committee, but I want to make sure that the city council can hear what has transpired in that time period.
Sure.
to do that, that would be the next one, which would be number 5, and then the numbers would go consecutively after that.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda with the exception of
J.
J, yeah.
Second.
Okay, there's something that I should just clarify in the consent agenda since I didn't read it. On item, excuse me, E, it should be noted that the Toppling Goliath license renewal is including Sunday sales for those special events in their outdoor service area. Okay, any other questions or comments on the consent agenda then?
Those Sunday sale dates are similar to what we approved for their events last year, correct?
I would say that they're pretty close
Pretty
to
close,
same corresponding dates.
But the same concept.
Yes.
Any other questions on the consent agenda?
So by approving the violation that Walmart incurred, it won't come to light other than it was approved on the consent that there was tobacco sold to a minor.
You're
in
only setting a date
violation.
for a public hearing.
Okay, that's, thank you.
And just for clarification, I've talked to the Walmart legal counsel.
Yes.
And they're going to sign the settlement
I
and
noticed that.
acknowledgement and pay the fine. Then it comes back to the council to approve it for the mayor to sign the agreement. So
Very good.
it'll be back one way or another. Might not have to have a hearing, but.
Thank you.
Okay?
Okay.
So the consent agenda, Hadley,
Aye.
Carlson.
Aye.
Luce,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Neal,
Aye.
Chisel,
Aye.
Bergen.
Aye.
Okay, consider special event application for Nordic Fest Community Event downtown Decorah, July 23rd through the 25th, 2020, at various locations. I think for myself, I'd like to hear from Chris at Vesterheim as to what you have been involved with since you were here previously. Might you do so?
So my name is Chris Johnson. I serve as the president and CEO at Vesterheim Norwegian American Museum here in Decorah. I have a few remarks here. So since the December 16th council meeting, where I voiced my concerns about the Nordic Fest board's initial plans, I have since had subsequent meetings with not only my own staff, but members of the Nordic Fest board and some key supporters in Decorah to listen to their thoughts and their perspectives. And while I was very concerned this past December about what that event setup in front of Vesterheim could look like over Nordic Fest, I also said I was willing to work with the Nordic Fest board and on a workable solution. And I have since had very good, productive discussions with the Nordic Fest board that have addressed my concerns and the concerns of my staff. The Nordic Fest board has assured me that the approach that they're proposing to take here is a very different approach from the beverage garden that had been a previous part of the Nordic Fest. This is a more nuanced approach to what they were proposing than can be shown actually in the application itself. So I wanted to just talk about some of the specific concerns I had and how they were addressed. So first of all, relation to access, I think there's concerns about access to Vesterheim with this. As I understand it, people who are interested in going to see the museum and the different craft demonstrators, they won't be impacted at all by this. As I understand it from the Nordic Fest board, and I'm sure you'll hear from them, people are interested in purchasing an alcoholic beverage will have their ID checked and given a wristband at the beverage sales area. In addition, as I understand it, the traffic barriers that have been previously used will be adequate to monitor access to the block, and that there will be 4 access points. I think on the map it shows 3, but I think it's on both sides of the street, it looked like. The purpose is to make sure that the people with alcoholic beverages don't go beyond that area, but rather not to keep people from coming in. I think that's, again, I think Corey will address some of that as
Okay.
well here. If you remember back in December, I was worried about the impact on the parade route, and that was addressed fairly early in those discussions as well. The proposed setup on Water Street will not impact the parade route as it goes past Vesterheim, which was one of several concerns that I had in December. As I understand it, the stage that they're proposing on the west side of the block would be configured in such a way that it can be moved out of the way prior to the parade, so that should not have an impact. I had some concerns about the types of music being offered in this venue, and I'll confess that I am a fan of 1980s music from that generation. Maybe that's a sin, I'm not sure. I didn't think a hard-rocking 80s cover band was compatible with this location, but I've been assured by Nordic Fest that the direction they're going with their music is different than this, and probably much more compatible with the location that we're talking about. A key concern that our staff had voiced was food. We wanted to make sure if we could get more in the way of food vendors down into that area of the block. And the Nordic Fest Board has also assured me that this would be a priority for them. And I think on the map, it shows locations for food vendors. From our side, when we talked about this as a staff in more detail, staff got very excited about this, about what could be done. One of the pieces that is we're thinking about is for the fact that we are likely to have the north side of our property be a construction site over this upcoming summer. We're looking at doing work on Vesterheim Heritage Park, which is coming up for final approval by City Council. And so that part of our property is going to be pretty well ripped up, perhaps, during construction. And so we were looking at a way to bring some of our programming out into the street. And so we're looking at making that a richer experience for visitors, and we think that we can move more of our folk art demonstrators out into the street to make that a richer space. As regarding to beverages, I'm well aware that a segment of my audience at Vesterheim is not comfortable with the idea of alcohol being served at the museum. However, we've also had recent track record of having events that had an alcohol component. Some examples include Scandinavian craft cocktail class we recently held in cooperation with the co-op. We've had the Toppling Goliath help collaborate with us on our Tattoo Identity Through Ink exhibition. We've had a collaboration with Pulpit Rock Brewery in developing a special beer in honor of an event they had. I also think of it from this perspective. Norway itself has had a long tradition of brewing, and Vesterheim's collections themselves include many objects from its earliest history that relate to the brewing of beer. And Norwegians who immigrated to America often carried on these traditions. An object that we have in our collection right now on public display is a historic building on site called the Tasse Drying Shed. It was built in the 1860s. It was used by Knut Thompson from up in Goodhue County, Minnesota. And it was used specifically for drying grain used in the beer making process. In my discussions with the Nordic Fest Board, I said if we were going to serve beer near the museum, one way that we could look at doing that in a way that would be compatible with the museum's mission is to provide an educational component related to the brewing traditions in Norway. So if the permit was approved, we've encouraged the Nordic Fest Board to reach out to local breweries such as Pivo and Kalmar, Pulpit Rock, Toppling Goliath to develop their own special beers that are inspired by those Norwegian brewing traditions. Perhaps they could be served. We would also look to, from our own perspective, provide a venue for people such as ale bowl carvers in a nearby location to provide additional context and a component of the brewing traditions of Norway. But we also want to see non-alcoholic beverages served as well in this place. So the combination of food as well as non-alcoholic beverages would suggest something that's more akin to like going up to Toppling Goliath or something like that, where it's an atmosphere that allows for a variety of different ages to participate there. So with those, I've been assured the Nordic Fest Board that this is compatible with what we had in mind, and so we're supportive of the proposal.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Chris.
I'd like to hear from Corey
Yep.
as well, and then whatever questions you might have. It is Corey, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
You have specific questions
I
for
do.
me?
And I
Okay.
think the biggest, I know that in the last meeting, And what I've heard is the concern about having the beer and the main, and that block. And my question, where I don't think that that's something, I'll speak for myself, city council may think different, I don't think that we have a right as city council to tell you how to work with your event. But I'm guessing perhaps two things, maybe you've had questions that way, and if so, how can people approach you as far as their not approving of having the beer there?
Sorry, so the question was, how would somebody approach me about their concern on
Right,
us
if
having
they're,
alcoholic
you know,
sales on the street?
if we're not listening, like I said, I'm not sure that falls under the city council, but they should be able to contact the Nordic Fest board if they are
Sure.
not in agreement.
Sure, well, we would certainly welcome any questions or comments from people. People are welcome to, email us. We have the contact information there. They're welcome to come to a Nordic Fest meeting with any questions or concerns that they might have. But I think one thing that I feel like is still maybe a common question from people is there is still a misunderstanding of how we're going to set that space up,
That would be
which I
another
think
question.
is the most concerning, I think, to people that don't maybe have a good understanding of that. So we are in the process of working on writing something up that we will make public in some sort of a press release form that will, I don't know, I just describe the space in more detail, what's going to be there, why it's going to be there, how we've worked with Vesterheim on that. And, in there we can encourage people to contact us with, any further questions that they might have. So hopefully we'll have something here in the next couple days that we can make public too. That really piggybacks off a lot of the things that Chris just mentioned. So.
Is everybody ID'd when they come across the access, or only if they go in to get the beverage?
So there wouldn't be anything restricting or stopping people from entering the space. It would be if you went to go purchase a beverage, you would be wristbanded, and then that would be, how you'd
indication.
be identified having a drink. So there wouldn't, we don't want to disrupt the flow of people coming in. Obviously, we would disrupt the flow of you leaving with a beverage. We would stop that at those points. But yeah, you wouldn't get, you wouldn't have to do anything to enter the space. Just, when you went up to the beverage sales area, so.
Okay. Does the council have any questions, comments for either of these gentlemen?
I had questions regarding the music. I know Chris had said that he's a fan of 80s music. But I did have some residents that are envisioning giant tower stacks
Sure, yep.
echoing off of the Vesterheim building. I'm under the assumption that it is not the same scale of music that
Correct.
you're trying to put into a smaller space. Could you talk more about that?
Yep, so, yeah, I mean, we're not gonna bring in that sound system that we had before, so, Jenny Grouse could have probably spoke better on this, but just like any other entertainment provider that performs at a canopy, they bring their own sound system. It will be that same thing. So it'll just be the degree of music that their own equipment provides, right? So, that's pretty watered down compared to what it was. So they're gonna be like talking about portable speakers,
Sure.
So it won't be anything more than that. Like Nordic Fest won't be providing sound to them like we always did down in the parking lot. It'll be the entertainer bringing the sound that they have.
Right.
So, is that,
Yep.
Yeah,
It's
did I-
just make sure that it's not, as
Yeah.
it's not going to be a concert venue on that block. in front of
correct,
Vesterheim.
yep.
And then I'd also ask to hear from the chamber, just because it's on chamber property, I wanted to make sure that the
Good
chamber was
idea.
good. Can we have Christina?
Yes, you may.
Can we have Christina to come up?
Let's see if they have any other
Okay.
questions. Any other comments or questions of Chris or Corey?
I just would like to make one more point too. I created this little map, and nothing on here is set in stone. Even the one thing that was published about the access points, Chris and I have talked numerous times, and you know, we're willing to work with them on whatever makes sense to keep, doesn't feel like it's going to disrupt their flow of traffic and different things too. So, you know, one thing was, you know, we'll make the access points available at all points of the sidewalk too.
And
So
I'm
I know-
assuming you're in consultation with David.
Yep, Greg and I met with the police department and had conversations with them too, so.
Did anybody else have any other questions or comments of the two gentlemen? If not, Christina, can you come up? Thank you.
I haven't prepared any comments,
That's
but
okay.
I also, along with Chris and others, have been in the Nordic Fest meetings where some of the concerns have been addressed. And I feel like it's been a really healthy conversation that has addressed what the music will be, what the admission will be, and how that's all monitored. And I think many of the concerns over sound and that sound system not coming up, it'll be like any other canopy that's along the street. We are headquarters for Nordic Fest, and so we do a lot throughout the fest. Buttons and program sales, envelope registration, cantaloupe registration, church dinner tickets, merchandise. Visitors still come in wanting regular visitor information, and we're set up to handle all of that. And public restrooms. So there's a lot that goes on in our office. I think this will increase our traffic perhaps, but I also think it's going to bring some of the Fest board members a little more central with our space as well. So if they move merchandise sales outside, that alleviates some congestion perhaps in our office, but also bring a little more traffic down in that way that hopefully will benefit the Fest in terms of other sales, be it buttons and programs or merchandise, and hopefully benefit Vesterheim overall also. So there's a lot of relationships in that, and I think everyone's committed to making it beneficial.
Yeah, I guess I was also wanting to make sure that your board had looked at the use of their space and that KVI could.
Yeah, we've had minimal full board conversation about it. I think it was when it first came around, and at that point it was a little early. And I guess my perspective is the Fest board is full of well-intentioned people who have the best interest of the Fest at heart as well. And the decisions have been vetted and well thought out. And I think there's always a learning curve, right? You're always going to learn things, but you don't know till you try to.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, good, thank you.
I know there were, perhaps anybody would want to speak. Is it is the council open to that, or would you prefer to direct them right to the Nordic Fest board, or I'll leave that to the council's decision if you want to hear from anybody that is currently here.
We've heard from the preliminaries, the primaries, so.
Okay.
I think if people are here to speak, we can hear them.
Just let them speak.
Yeah, I mean, if
Okay.
people come to speak. I
If
think we
you're,
should
if
let
you'd
them.
like to speak to this, come up to the podium, say your name, your address, and we'll give you a few minutes to be able to relay. And then I'd encourage you also to go to the.
Thank you. I'll keep this brief,
Okay,
Mayor.
thank you.
My name is Peter Vanderlinden. I live at 101 Grove Street, 1 block west of Vesterheim. And I'm very concerned about the level of noise from the platform at its location right on the west corner of the, by the Vesterheim there. There are houses right across the street and are all around that area. And I guess perhaps maybe not as confident as the representatives of Nordic Fest that sound will not be real loud. I think it's going to be as loud as the musicians want it to be. And I just wondered if anyone here or anyone on the Vesterheim or on the Nordic Fest board, excuse me, would want to have a loud concert going on right across the street from their house late at night, 2 nights in a row. And I would ask you to consider doing unto others what you would want done to you. Thank you.
The one quick, yeah, would you check with the time frame for what that,
So to address that issue, 2 things. There has always been an entertainment canopy at that end of Water Street that will be no different than what is going to take place this year.
okay,
So the the level of entertainment and the sound of the entertainment isn't going to change from any prior year. If anyone, has been down there, it's always been an entertainment canopy with music anyway. What was the second part of that? Oh, the time.
Time.
So we will probably stop music at 10 o'clock. So we would, especially on Saturday night, because we want to stop it and then have people enjoy the fireworks, and then if they want to go out after that, they find somewhere else to go. So we will have music normal times during the fest, as it's been in the last however many years, but music will go till 10.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Is there anybody else that would like to speak? Okay.
My name is Kate Rattenborg, and my address is 813 Ridge Road. I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening. As many of you know, I am the owner of 2 retail businesses in Decorah. I am also a former board member of the Decorah Area Chamber of Commerce and a former trustee of the Vesterheim Norwegian American Museum. But I am speaking this evening in my role as a Decorah native and resident, a Luther College graduate, and as a passionate advocate for the Nordic Fest experience. Over the years, I have participated as a volunteer in many Nordic Fests. I was one of the youth running around the streets of Decorah in my bunad and rode in the parades with other music students playing violins out of the train windows on Pokey Peak. As a teen, I gave tours at the Porterhouse Museum, and in high school, I was a musician in the first Nordic Dancers Orchestra in the late 1970s. Living out of town as an adult before returning back, I lived out of town for almost 20 years. My volunteering was more limited, but I continued demonstrating embroidery, an activity I started when I was almost 8. I also participated in the Bunad style shows and with helping out with the first Lutheran church dinners. In more recent years, after my return to Decorah, I have volunteered at the chamber offices. There are elements of the Nordic Fest Board's proposal that are of interest and some elements that are of concern to me. I'm very excited about the prospect of a greater emphasis on Scandinavian music and programming and the potential to have a music canopy reinvigorated in the 500 block of West Water Street. Even though the museum experienced an approximate 20% growth in visitor traffic last year over the year previously, and that the visitor center and the chamber indicates that they are so busy it is impossible to track the number of people through the building, there is a visual perception that nothing is happening on that block. Having a stronger music canopy, demonstrations, and a food booth on the block will assist in drawing more people from the middle of the retail district. This is a strength to the proposal. However, the opposite end of the street, 100 East Water Street block, is also a block where it is rather dead during the festival, and I am interested in seeing what the Nordic Fest Board proposes to make changes to that end of town as opposed to drawing even more foot traffic away from it. I have grave concerns, as I voiced in December, about locating the beer garden or the beverage booth, whatever the name of it becomes, in the Vesterheim block or the visitor centers block, one of our most family-friendly blocks during the fest. I do not feel that the two elements of the former beer garden need to be kept together. The entertainment canopy can be separated from beer sales, and the beer sales can be located to a more central part of the community on perhaps a side street or remaining where it has been, where restricted access points would not affect the open flow of families, older couples, young students, and all of our fest visitors walking on Water Street. Personally, I would prefer that alcohol consumption and sales not be endorsed by integrating the sales of alcohol into the fabric of the remainder of the nonprofit booths on Water Street. Even though I've been assured by individual Nordic Fest board members that the proposed Water Street beer sales will not result in abuse of alcohol, I believe that statistics belie their statements. According to the National Institutes of Health, in 2018, 26% of people ages 18 or older reported that they engaged in binge drinking in the past month. And there is no reason to believe that the 3-day Nordic Fest weekend would not qualify as a binge drinking opportunity. Regardless of where the beer garden is relocated, I would like to see the See educational messages placed concerning what A, constitutes moderate drinking, which is up to 1 to 2 alcoholic drinks per day, according to the 2015 to 2020 Dietary Guidelines for Americans, and B, the importance of recommendations to stay hydrated with drinking at least 8 ounces of water for every alcoholic drink. Thank you very much for your consideration.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak? Briefly? We've got a ways to go yet tonight. Thank you.
Paul Scott from 405 East Broadway Street. A couple of quick notes. One, we all want Nordic Fest to be successful. And the second note, I want to thank Vesterheim for trying to work this out to come up with something workable. As a reporter, I'm experienced many of the same things you do as city council members, because the public's always expressing opinions to me. I'm sure you can relate to the fact that sometimes these are favorable, but probably more often than not, they are complaints. Well, after the move of the Nordic Fest beer tent came up the first time in December, I posted a comment on Decorah News calling it the worst idea of 2019, and I was prepared for a variety of opinions, both favorable and critical. Instead, I had people stopping me on the street, in stores, in church, everywhere I went, thanking me for that comment, and not a single comment in opposition. So, one other point, the Nordic Fest Board promised to issue a news release last week on the details of their revised proposal. They did not. As Corey said, they're still working on it. But of course, if the vote comes tonight, the news release about the plans will come after the vote. In other words, not before the vote, so that it could not affect it. I'll point out that organizations make a point of sending out news releases when they think the public will be excited about the news. The Nordic Fest Board could move their beverage sales to any other block on Water Street, or to Washington Street, or to Winnebago Street, or to Court Street, and not cause the disruption that this proposal will cause. They have chosen not to, which I think is unfortunate. I will praise Vesterheim for its efforts to make this work, but I think this is a proposal that's going to bring some criticism from the community. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay.
I move acceptance of the special event application for the Nordic Fest community event.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Luce.
Aye.
Chisel.
Aye.
Bergen.
Aye.
Neal.
Aye.
Hadley.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Carlson.
Aye.
I'd encourage anybody that has any comments to refer them to the Nordic Fest Board as well.
The one thing I will say, I wanted to say when I voted, is that I do think sometimes we just try new things, and we try them and we see how they go, and I think I commend the people who work together to figure this out, so thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Now, consider approval of the State Historical Society's Certified Local Government Annual Report from the Decorah Historic Preservation Commission and authorizing the mayor to sign.
So moved. Second.
Did we get it in triplicate?
No, but it's full of acronyms.
Yeah. Okay, roll call.
Chisel.
Aye.
Hadley.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Luce.
Aye.
Carlson.
Aye.
Neal.
Aye.
Bergen.
Aye.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mark.
Thank you.
Next, Resolution 3055, a resolution setting a date for the hearing on plans, specifications, form of contract, and estimated total costs for the 2020 Quarry Street Storm Sewer Improvements Project. I believe it's set for April 6, 2020 at 5:45.
The public hearing is set for April 6th. with bids due on March 31st. There was some later information added to your Dropbox. I'm sending around a basic plan sheet. The full plan set is in your Dropbox. And then just to let you know, while you're just setting a public hearing and other information, the engineer's opinion of probable cost is $447,892.
Can you repeat that, please?
$447,892
Thank you.
and 50 cents. Jeremy, do you want to add anything on the project? So, unless there are questions, as you know, this is a primarily stormwater improvement project. Some of it is in relation to anticipated stormwater discharge from the Locust Road project. So it's kind of an ancillary project from that.
Dixie's.
Okay,
Make a motion for the approval of resolution
Dixie's on the
3065.
corner, because all the water's
Second.
coming down, and then
any further
over here is
discussion?
Quick Start, Decorah Mart's over here.
Roll call?
Carlson?
Aye.
Luce? Aye. Johnson?
Aye.
Hadley?
Aye.
Neal?
Aye.
Chisel?
Aye.
Bergen?
Aye.
Resolution 3056, approval of the 2020 Winnebago County Multi-Jurisdiction MJ9 Multi-Hazardous Mitigation Plan.
Easy for you to say.
Good job.
Made it. You should say the plan.
There are several pieces of information in your Dropbox regarding this. What I am sending around are the high priority action items related specifically to the city of Decorah. As the mayor mentioned, this is a multi-jurisdictional, which means that it consists of the county and all the entities in the county, including the school districts, in terms of addressing multi-hazards. So storms, floods, transportation, any other types of events that the group was able to identify and prioritize with mitigation actions. And so what I've sent along are the City of Decorah's primary or high priority areas. This has been about a year, maybe a little over a year-long process to update the 2015 plan. It is required to be updated per FEMA regulations. If any of the jurisdictions that participate wish to receive FEMA funding or support, a plan like this needs to be in place. It also helps us if we identify needs for mitigation, for example, permanent pumping along the levee system. We need to have those types of things identified in this plan so that we could seek grant funding support for those as well. So this is your opportunity then to approve the plan as presented, or the draft plan as presented. All the jurisdictions in the county will be going through an action like this. I think the final adopting resolution will be by the County Board of Supervisors.
I want to commend Michelle Barnes for the work that she's done. Her attention to detail was unbelievable, and I'm assuming this will be on the city website?
Yeah, it's actually, we'll link it, but once it's completed and approved, it
Okay.
usually resides on the Upper Explorerland Regional Planning
Okay.
Commission website with links to the jurisdictions.
It's a valuable document.
And Sean.
And Sean,
Sean.
right,
Oh, yeah.
exactly, thank you.
Great plan.
Lots of work.
Yep.
Super.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution 3056.
Second.
Any further discussion? Roll call?
Hadley?
Aye.
Carlson?
Aye.
Luce?
Aye.
Johnson?
Aye.
Neal?
Aye.
Bergen?
Aye.
Chisel?
Aye.
Discussion regarding an ordinance establishing the Decorah Sustainability Commission. You have some background on that?
So a little bit, there was a, during the council work session on February 24th, there was considerable discussion regarding a enabling ordinance to create and seat a sustainability commission. And so I have worked through what I thought were the notes coming out of that and presented a draft ordinance that would create the commission, and then an appointment resolution that would outline the terms of the first appointees to the commission. And so I put that on here just to make sure I got it right, get some direction from council. If it all looks good, then the next step would be to present the final ordinance to the council at the next meeting.
I think it looks good as long as we take out Board of Trustees of Decorah Municipal Communications Utility.
Where was that? Oh, up here on the resolution?
Yep.
Yep,
You did ask for that.
I did.
And sustainability is spelled wrong.
Really?
Sorry.
On the same resolution?
Sounds like something.
Under the resolution,
Yep. I see.
in caps, sustainability is spelled wrong.
Well, there you go.
And in the second paragraph, you would want to, I would guess you would want to put in the Decorah Sustainability Commission versus the Communications Utility.
I guess I would.
Yep.
I wonder if that tells me that my version of Word is not up to date.
Okay, is it clear going forward? If you have any comments, suggestions other than that, pass it on. This would be on for,
And so I might ask John, just for point of order here, but, it feels to me like you'd approve the ordinance first, adopt that, and then, and we had talked at the work session about giving some time for public input and awareness and education about the seats. And I did put in here that the commission would be active as of June 1 to allow for that time for recruitment and awareness and education. So this resolution would come once the individuals are identified on or about June 1.
I think that's a good way to go. That way, your potential candidates know what the ordinance is that they'll be dealing with and whether they want to be part of that or not.
and the application process is the same as any other commission.
That'd be right.
Right.
That'd be correct.
And I wanted, and we could get rid of the Cable Commission at the same time.
There's always been that sort of addendum that's
Clean up
come
our commission.
across for us.
John and I have talked about repealing, there's 3 or 4 different ordinances. Low rent housing, cable commission, there were some others I think that will. So unless there's any other changes, or you can get them to me, we'll set this up for the first reading on March 16th.
Very good.
So I thought the one thing we talked about, instead of saying what the expertise was for all the different entities, that we would make sure that all of the entities that were represented in the plan would be listed. So I'm wondering about the communication outreach and transportation and social sustainability, equity, well-being, if those words could get into the document to show all of the different factors of the plan, it seems like it would help those who asked for a copy of about what they were supposed to be about. It would be right there as opposed to,
Oh, we had talk at the beginning where the city council, I think that's what you're saying, right? A multi-pronged approach to sustainability that views, I think we had talked about actually listing the 8.
Well, up there, or I thought it was in the purpose statement, and that's where I put them.
Oh, yeah, we did. Okay, that's right.
what
Sorry.
number is that?
Because, number
Section
2,
two,
section
purpose.
2, because
No, I
that's
mean
what'll be
what-
I thought we
codified.
did, yeah, we did talk about, yeah.
The whereases are just the preamble, those won't be codified.
Hey,
Your
which-
section numbers will be,
In the Dropbox, which number is that document? Can you tell me?
It's either 17 or 18.
Okay, thank you.
yeah, it's probably number
There you go.
17.
I got it.
So you're saying
Air,
it's in
water.
section?
So it should be in section 2, purpose. That was
Purpose.
my takeaway from the work session.
Well, that's what I'm saying, is
But they're
that
not
it
aligned
doesn't
yet.
have communication or outreach, it doesn't have transportation, and it doesn't have social sustainability, equity, and well-being.
Well, then I would ask where those are in the sustainability plan, because I took this from the purpose statement of the sustainability plan and put it in the purpose statement for the ordinance.
It's the headers of the
The
8.
different headers of the actual segments
Okay,
of
that-
the plan.
So that was not my takeaway at the work session. It was to have the same purpose statement in this purpose statement. But I can change that.
All I
That's not
heard,
a
well, I'm just bringing it up because I heard that all of the sections would be represented in the purpose. So we took different takeaways.
But it does state it is outlined in the Decorah Sustainability Plan.
Yeah, no, I agree with Steve. I think that's what, but I'm going back to the plan here.
I mean, we have air and water in the purpose. It just says air, comma, water. So they're a little different.
Yeah, you just have to tell me what you want.
I would list out the 8, Steve was saying.
So you would say they
I mean, I
would should
guess
have,
the question would be, is the plan or the ordinance gonna last longer? And are those 8 categories in the plan envisioned to change in the next, like, 5 years? In which case, I think comparing the purpose statements of the documents are a stronger foundational connection. I'm not opposed to all 8 being in there, I just am thinking about the future.
It might be 6 of one, half dozen of the other, but what I got from the discussion is that we would have all of the topics of the plan as what the purpose was, that people would be involved in as they asked to be on the commission.
What if it was under duties and responsibilities, under A, section 6? Under A, what if the 8 were there? Would that make the most sense?
So where it says that include, and then list the 8.
Yes. I mean, or, something, somewhere in there, because some of that isn't environmental. Communication and education is not necessarily an environmental factor.
Correct.
But I think it would make sense to have it be in duties and responsibilities, because when I'm reading a document about it, having it be in duties and responsibilities
I like that.
makes sense, and that way
I see.
it does keep it a relevant issue in front of the people as time progresses.
So it would be reflected from the plan, but as
Yeah.
the headings, but it will be in A under section 6.
Under A, yep. That would be my recommendation.
Works for me?
Yeah.
I still am trying to figure out the purpose statement, only because we're missing sort of the human, that social sustainability piece in the purpose, and that I would want to get.
And that was from the plan, though. It was lifted right from the plan.
I have to give Chad some guidance as far as
Yeah, we can, this is
that
an email
piece.
thing.
Did we
That
approve
piece,
the-
I think, Steve's question, I think worked well in A, but I'm not sure.
So that, I'm just trying to figure out what the alignment is, only because in the plan, it's saying economic prosperity, environmental integrity, community resilience, healthy, resilient, adaptable, and then we have the 8 interconnected systems. So I guess I'm trying to figure out the alignment, but we can do that, we don't have to do it right
Offline,
here.
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So on the resolution appointing members, does that all look like that's what you were thinking? And I guess I would ask John if he had any other thoughts on the appointing resolution too. I mean, we have time to go through that, obviously, but,
It's what you've used in the past, right?
Yeah.
So,
and when you.
obviously, because
Yeah. How would you guess?
No, I have nothing to add. You just want to make sure you have staggered terms, and that's what you have.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Consider board and commission appointments. Smith Board, Steve Luce is a reappointment.
I don't know if he qualified.
Not very. Are you wanting to be reappointed?
No, I'm good.
No.
Talking to
You're
me?
good.
Because Steve took my spot. I thought you were talking to
Who's
me for a
talking?
second.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
good.
How good are you?
Okay, we're looking for a reappointment of Steve.
I'd make a motion to reappoint Steve Luce to the SMID board as a city liaison, city council liaison.
Second.
Any further discussion? Roll call.
Carlson?
Aye.
Hadley?
Aye.
Bergen?
Aye.
Chisel?
Aye.
Neal?
Aye.
Luce?
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
And we still have opening on the Human Rights Commission. So if you know of anybody that might be interested in that, direct them to Chad.
Did note on the list for the TFI LMI that the chair's is up.
I think that was,
That's another one of those commissions that needs a little help. I think there are
I know
several
the
seats.
chair is totally inadequate.
Yeah. There are actually a couple of seats on that commission that have expired out as well.
okay.
There are term limits on that commission too,
Which
so.
one is that?
The one that
TIF
I chair.
LMI, Low and Moderate Housing
Okay.
Fund Commission. So Mayor, you and I will need to spend a little time with that and look at the term limits
Okay.
on that for a couple of those positions, so.
And the county representative, they select that though, right? Or how does that work?
No. I don't
You'll have to
remember.
look.
Maybe it's not, maybe it's just someone who was in the county and not.
Right.
Okay. City manager report?
You know, I don't think I have anything to report tonight. I'm gonna pass.
Department heads?
Just going to let you know what's going on with some of our new folks. We recently hired 3 people and had them sworn in front of you all. Since then, the 2 that are certified are going through the field training program. They will complete that this month, so they'll be out in the streets on their own. The other candidate is at the Iowa Law Enforcement Academy. He just purchased a house today in Decorah. We're excited for him, his first house, so he'll be joining us when he finishes in the academy, which will be mid-April. And then he'll also go through a 3-month program like the other 2 have been going through. Sergeant Mark Hepburn, who's been with us for about 25 years, is going to retire in a few weeks. So it's going to be a big loss for us. And I want to meet with John soon, talk about the Civil Service Commission getting together and starting that promotional process for Sergeant. And when we do that, it's not going to be like we did the Assistant Chief or the Chief. We're not going outside for a testing process. It'll be done in-house.
Thank you.
I've been getting some quotes on what we can do to implement the call-in for the council members or other members that aren't here. Today, I actually got a call from another board member from another commission asking what we're going to do for them as well. So we'll probably have to have some more discussion for Chad and others on if they don't meet here, we have to set up phones for other departments and stuff like that. I'm continuing with the wireless stuff, so I'll be working on that here hopefully next week. I just got some equipment in to start looking at phasing in some new wireless for the city.
Okay. Mike? Going right up to the top of the table there.
Potholes have arrived, if you haven't noticed, early this year. So we were busy last week, trying to move snow away from the curb so the water can get to where we want it, out of the main driveway to the street, and then potholes. Dry Run Plaza, which is the potential name of the new park down on the east end of Water Street, is going along very well. The fundraising group is very close to their goal. And so we have been working through the design details. I believe there's a latest concept rendering in your Dropbox. So it's coming together very nicely. Hoping to bid sometime in April, start this summer, possibly in the fall. Coming along nice.
Very good. City council?
I have nothing this evening, Mayor.
Brief utility meeting here shortly after. I just want to give a shout out to the Nordic Fest Board and Chamber and Vesterheim for all working together. I know it's a thankless job sometimes and people like to complain, but all in all, at the end of the day, appreciate what you do. So thanks.
I would agree that I think their exemplification of working together different segments of the community is very admirable, and this is an example of what we were talking about in our goal setting of how to work with different entities across the county to bring things together.
And being very conscious of budgets and funding for such. Good. Anything else?
I was on a phone call, Zoom call with some people from UNI and across the state, and we have been assigned to Matthew and Trevor from UNI students to help us move on, helping set some of our climate goals, and so we have a couple more assistants that we can use to help us accomplish what we want.
And that's from you and I, right? Are they from you and I?
That's where they are from, yes.
Yep, C-triple-E.
Okay, anything else?
No.
Johanna?
Nothing this evening.
Russ?
If we can get it arranged with bond council, I'd like to have a street committee meeting on April 6th following them. What?
March 16th.
Or March 16th, sorry, I thought it was April 6th. March 16th, after the meeting, to discuss funding for upcoming road projects, street projects.
If we're meeting, is that a time we can talk about the signs that was mentioned in the historic district, or is that something different? But
Yeah, we can talk about that
Okay.
as well. Just ask to put it on the agenda.
Great.
Earlier today, I received an email from the president of Luther College, Jennifer Ward, detailing what Luther College is doing in regard to preparations for the coronavirus. And I sent that to Chad, and I'm just going to ask Chad if you would please relay that to all of us here and all of the department heads, just to keep everybody apprised of what we're doing at the college for
Very good.
purpose.
Wash your hands.
And I forgot one more thing.
Okay.
Are you done?
I am.
Sorry. I, along with the mayor and Emily, attended the Decorah 2030 session, which involved a couple anchor members of the community. It was just a brief get-together on potential needs in the next 10 years, and it was really good just to get together and have a chance to talk. We didn't have a specific vision. It was just good to get together and talk and to discuss everybody's needs moving forward, and we'll be hopefully getting together again in the future.
Good. And?
No, I have no comment. I mean, coronavirus is my thunder, not gonna lie.
Oh, sorry.
You're told all your thunder.
Yes, we'll all be video conferencing in a few months.
Oh, that's
I
great.
should have asked you.
Well, we knew it came from two then down there. Just comment, we've been working, I know that our maintenance person has attended a meeting with public health as far as the COVID-19. And also, I will be doing a webinar in the morning that Krista Vandenberg sent out, and it's from the Iowa Department of Public Health. So we're hoping that we're kind of on top of as much as we can be moving forward. So with that, we're adjourned.
Move to adjourn.